I always believed marriage was about building a future together. I never imagined that one day I'd be sitting in a crowded ballroom, watching my own wife introduce another man as the love of her life while pretending I barely existed. People say paying medical school tuition is expensive. They're wrong. The most expensive thing I ever paid for was trust. For 6 long years, I worked double shifts at a manufacturing plant. I skipped holidays, birthdays, vacations, and even my own dreams because every extra dollar went toward her education. Whenever friends invited me out, I always had the same answer. Maybe next year. Next year never came. Every anniversary became another tuition payment. Every Christmas became another semester's textbooks. She would cry and promise me, when I become a doctor, we'll finally start living. Those words became the fuel that kept me awake during 16-hour workdays. I truly believed I wasn't just paying for her education. I was investing in our future. Looking back now, I wasn't building a marriage. I was financing someone else's escape. I used to joke that I was married to student debt with a side of romance. The funny part is that the debt turned out to be far more faithful than my wife ever was. Everything fell apart on the night of the hospital's annual fundraising gala. She had mentioned the event weeks earlier, saying spouses weren't really expected because it was mostly doctors and donors. I wanted to surprise her anyway. I even bought a new suit with money I'd been secretly saving for months, thinking she'd be proud to introduce the man who had sacrificed everything for her success. When I walked into the ballroom, I spotted her almost immediately. She looked incredible in a beautiful evening dress, laughing with a group of surgeons and hospital executives. Before I could call her name, I noticed she was holding another man's hand. At first, I convinced myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe he was just a colleague. Maybe I was misunderstanding what I was seeing. Then she noticed me. For a split second, every bit of color drained from her face. Instead of running over to hug me or introducing me as her husband, she forced a nervous smile and said the sentence that shattered 6 years of sacrifice. Everyone, this is an old family friend. An old family friend. Not my husband. Not the man who paid for my education. Just someone from the past. The room became painfully quiet before everyone politely smiled and returned to their conversations. I laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because sometimes your heart breaks so completely that your body mistakes unbearable pain for humor. As I walked away, I couldn't shake one terrifying thought. Why did nobody there seem surprised? Why did it feel like everyone in that hospital already knew a story that I had never been told? The answers arrived slowly, one painful discovery at a time. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell or throw things. Instead, I started asking quiet questions and listening carefully. Within days, the truth was impossible to ignore. Several hospital employees believed I was her unstable ex-boyfriend who couldn't accept that the relationship was over. She had told people she built her life entirely on her own and that I occasionally appeared trying to ruin her happiness. I almost admired the confidence it took to erase 6 years of marriage with a few convincing lies. The apartment where she lived? I bought it years before she graduated. The car she drove to work every morning? My overtime paid for it. Every tuition invoice, every licensing fee, every medical textbook, every exam registration had come directly from my bank account. Yet somehow, in her version of reality, I had become a jealous man obsessed with a successful doctor who wanted nothing to do with him. What hurt most wasn't even the affair. It was realizing she wasn't ashamed of betraying me. She was ashamed that her co-workers might discover she hadn't reached the top alone. The man who loved her had become an inconvenience, a reminder of the life she wanted to erase. A few days later, hospital security contacted me after she claimed I was harassing her by showing up near the building. That accusation changed everything. If she wanted to rewrite history, then I would let history speak for itself. I spent an entire weekend organizing every piece of evidence from our marriage. Tuition payment confirmations stretching back 6 years. Mortgage documents showing my name on the apartment. Tax returns listing us as husband and wife. Insurance policies naming her as my spouse. Thousands of text messages discussing exams, bills, and our future together. Finally, I included one document she could never explain away, our official marriage certificate. I delivered neatly organized copies to the hospital's legal department and board after explaining that false harassment claims had been made against me by my own wife. I wasn't asking them to punish her. I simply wanted the truth documented before lies became permanent. The reactions came faster than I expected. Executives who had believed her story suddenly realized the respected young doctor had invented an imaginary ex while hiding a perfectly legal husband. Colleagues who once avoided me out of sympathy began questioning everything they thought they knew. Watching her desperately explain why the crazy ex she described was actually the man who financed her education and shared her last name was strangely peaceful. For the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. Her professional reputation collapsed almost overnight. Not because I sought revenge, but because lies rarely survive contact with evidence. The engagement she had been proudly showing off disappeared almost as quickly as it had begun. Apparently, even a man she planned to marry hadn't known she already had a husband waiting at home. Friends who once praised her determination quietly distanced themselves. Meanwhile, I packed my belongings, filed for divorce, and walked away from the life I had spent years trying to build. People often ask whether I regret paying for her medical degree. For a long time, I thought I did. Then I realized something important. Money can be earned again. Time can heal. Peace can return. But living the rest of my life with someone capable of rewriting our entire marriage would have cost far more than every tuition payment combined. The most valuable education I ever financed wasn't the one hanging on our office wall. It was the lesson that love without honesty is just an investment waiting to become a loss. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying the person who betrayed you. It's refusing to let their lies become your identity, walking away with your dignity intact, and realizing that the future you sacrifice for someone else can still become the future you build for yourself.